welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Dr. Renee Levy, author of Baseless Hatred. Dr. Levy, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
The book is absolutely fascinating. It's one of the issues that people just don't understand, that there's just pure hatred for people for no apparent reason. Tell us a little bit about the book, Baseless Hatred.
The book focuses on the concept of hatred for no reason. It's a Hebrew expression called sinat chinam, and the sages of the Talmud came up with this notion that most of hatred has actually no reason when we examine it. Most of hatred is avoidable. Most of hatred is without reason because it lasts. People have hatred that lasts 10, 20 years. So hatred that is completely disconnected from its source is baseless. Hatred spreads. Experts on hatred, like the writer Rush Dozier, said it's the nuclear weapon of the mind. So to use hatred as a response to perceptions of aggression is like having only one weapon, a nuclear weapon. So if the dog of your neighbor comes to your yard and messes up your yard, if you respond by hating your neighbor, you're like throwing a nuclear grenade, and that is unfair, excessive, and unjust.
Well, one of the major baseless hatreds that we've seen over the last 2,000 years is the hatred of Jewish people. We've been, attacked, harassed for thousands of years for no reason. I mean, Jewish people have been, for the most part, very productive in our society. Where does this hatred come from?
Well, this book explains, if you look at the image in the book, you have like a little fire here. It explains that our neural system can be divided into two parts. The primitive one, which is reptilian, which is very old, and the advanced one. The primitive one is the one that deals with hatred because actually hatred has a purpose. It's a defense mechanism against things we perceive as threats. So our primitive neural system is 24/7 on alert to take care of our insecurities because we feel we're fragile, vulnerable. All humans feel they are. And anytime they perceive a threat, even if it has no basis, it immediately triggers hatred as a response. So it's a very primitive response that we have, and what the book explains, especially at the end, is how to prevent it and how to repair it, and those are two different types of mechanisms, and for that we have to make a conscious effort, one person at a time.
What about when it comes to hatred based on ideology? We're seeing around the world now radical Islam attacking Christians in Africa, in Asia. Can you apply the same lessons from the baseless hatred to hatred that's based on a religion or a theology?
Absolutely, because any leader can harness this force that exists among people and just use it and channel it, and people become like robots. And they'll throw whatever they have, stones, chairs, bombs, whatever, because once you hate, you become obsessed. You become completely possessed by the object of your hate. You have this tremendous drive to only want to destroy that person. And we see that in family relationships. We see that in all our emotional circles, colleagues at work, friends. Not only legal hate crimes, we see it all around us, and certainly politicians can use it, and this way they have all they have to do is rekindle it every once in a while, and it works by itself. It works wonders.
Well, here's the big question then. If there is this, as you say, nuclear bomb of the mind, which is hate, how do we defuse the bomb? How do we teach people to love thy neighbor? How do we teach people to love one another?
In fact, you put your finger right on it. Because loving your neighbor, as explained by the sage of the Talmud called Hillel, is that which you hate do not do to others, which means that the highest form of love is not to hate. So loving family members, brother, sister, parents, children, in-laws, etc., is not hating them.
Dr. Levy, we literally have tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have to our viewing audience?
Is that there is hope. It requires self-control. The people who make the effort to work on themselves, to get rid of hatred, are people who become more secure, who don't see others as a threat, who walk through their lives, who don't feel aggressed all the time. And they're happier people if they're able to get rid of this emotion. And there are methods described in the book, both for prevention and for actual repair, like families that have been torn by episodes. There are ways to work about that. In fact, the last question of the book says, are you selfish enough to forgive? Because when you don't forgive, you lose. You're possessed.
Thank you, Dr. Levy, for being on the show. And
Thank
thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.